Excellent. Welcome to another episode of Industrial Amputation, where you can always expect the unexpected. Today we have with us a dark artist based in Los Angeles by way of Liverpool, specializing in the unexplained, horror, and science fiction. His work often includes elements inspired by ancient cultures, folklore, legend, and the occult. We welcome Mr. Sam Shearon to the show. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time today, Sam. Thanks. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Nice to be invited.
Right on.
Thank you.
So I think you ring all the major bells for someone whose child and early adulthood were spent obsessed with folklore and the paranormal. I was a devotee of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Arthur C. Clarke. His Mysterious Journey show was always, I've actually still got those on DVD.
Nice.
Basically of all things spooky. My junior and high school time spent nose buried in the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft and Demonology and the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. Anything mysterious and paranormal I could get my hands on. This is in the way back before you could take a class to go learn how to ghost hunt and stuff. And I was pretty much feeding myself out of books at the time. What I want to know is about Sam the Younger. Can you take us through some of the early stages of your development that in a land with such rich paranormal history as England?
That's a great question, because from my perspective, we never really saw it as anything more extreme than just England. I mean, of course, you hear your ghost stories, you grow up with the ghost stories, the legends, everyone knows Loch Ness. But as you say, the United Kingdom is just steeped with the paranormal in every direction. But again, growing up and going to different museums as a child, Liverpool Lime Street Museum, the Walker Art Gallery, the Docklands, the Albert Dock. That was just part of childhood. That was just the sort of the fun that you would do the weekend, or, in the summer, go and sit underneath giant dinosaur skeletons and, get out the sketchbook and that kind of thing. But generally speaking, it's just part of England. Whereas you come to America and it's kind of as you say, it's, these days, you pointed out the being able to take classes in ghost hunting and that kind of thing. But there's so many TV shows these days, it's unbelievable. But as you say, back in the 80s and, in the 70s, there really wasn't anything like that. It was just sort of very fringe, very kind of pushed aside. People were frightened of it, genuinely scared.
Big time,
These days, people can't get enough of it, as though it's a Disney show. And the only people who are really frightened of it are the sort of very Christian-based people who do still shy away from it. But very few people today are scared of that kind of thing. It's so commercialized and televised. It's pop culture now.
It really is. It's ingrained itself with us. I watch a lot of Josh Gates stuff, actually.
Nice, and a lot of that's fake and kind of hammed up. And
it really is. You're watching, you're like, oh man. But
he's not really in danger.
No, for sure.
But, I love it when they're deep in the ocean and they have those the helmets on. And they have like a scuba diver mouthpiece, but they're having full conversation. And you just think,
no, you're not.
Obviously this is recorded after the fact in the studio. There's no way.
I was noticing that on some episodes just the last week, where he's got a full-on mouthpiece in. He doesn't have the communication helmet. And the diver he's with also doesn't have a nice helmet. He's just got your regulator thing going on, and they're talking. You're like, oh, come on, man. So was there a particular legend or story about where you were that caught your attention early on and really started the wheels turning?
Nothing in particular. I was always sort of familiar with the Pendle witches, and generally every other town had a pub ghost. In every tiny little area, every street had a different pub or a church that was haunted, or a graveyard. There was a moment in 2005. So by then I'm in my 20s, but in my local town, someone had reported it. It ended up in the local newspaper that they'd seen a rabbit or a hare that was the size of a dog, and that it looked monstrous. And I mean that sort of pricked my own rabbit ears up, and I thought, what's this?
Now, did
So,
it have big, sharp, pointy fangs?
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I contacted the newspaper and I said, could I get all of the witness descriptions that you have? And I'll do an artist's composition of, all of those details. And I put them all together. And it ended up looking like some kind of violent, wily coyote.
Oh, nice. Do you still have that?
I do, yeah. I mean, it's called the Beast of Green Drive because the Green Drive area, which I've been many times, it's just down the road from where my parents live, where I grew up. And we'd go down of a night to see if we could see this thing because clearly people were seeing something.
Yeah.
And so as ridiculous as I may have characterized the creature, made it look a little extreme to the point where the police called and said, little old ladies walking their dogs are scared. They usually walk that area. Children will usually, walk to school in that area. You need to really tell people it's not real. You need to stop spinning the story. And I would say to them, well, apart from freedom of speech, I'm not the one printing the newspaper, and I'm not the one who's making the reports. I'm just the artist. You can't feed the messenger. But there were anonymous calls saying, please stop this because people are frightened of this creature. And in the back of your mind, you could say, there's nothing to it. It's just a mistaken identity. It was probably a deer. There were strange deer that lived in the area called mudjack deer that have the tusks.
The little tusks.
So, in the Victorian times, there was a family there that had those exotic deer on the grounds of their house, and it was sort of walled in. And it's going back 100 years, but people say that they still occasionally see one or two in the wild out there. So it was probably one of those. But needless to say, I just found it fascinating that these things do get seen, as well as big cats. People see them all the time in the United Kingdom, of all places.
Yeah. The legends of Black Panthers in the southern states is pretty prevalent too. When I was growing up in Florida, there was always talk about that, and then you watch nature documentaries and they're like, there's never been a melanistic panther or mountain lion. And I'm like, just because there's not one documented doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I mean, we've got melanistic bobcats, for crying out loud. A mountain lion could certainly be melanistic, but
for sure. Yeah.
But I mean, I saw a panther. I was driving out to Idaho, and we're driving by this big farm field area, and there's like this river in the middle of it, or a stream in the middle of it. It's maybe 10 feet across, and I see this tawny cat just hauling ass across the field and just bound right over it like it wasn't even there. And I'm like, holy shit, I saw an actual mountain lion running through the field. It was pretty cool.
Are you gonna laugh? But I have the exact same story. And I've spoken about this on other podcasts as recently as last year. But going back about 15, 16 years or so, me and my girlfriend at the time saw one in Preston, England. I was driving her home down a country lane, and sure enough, big black cat just kind of glides across the road in front of us.
Yeah.
And just as you said, it sort of almost floated in one bound up over the hedge.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I stopped the car and I thought, I've got to get out and see this. It's a black leopard, And then I thought, no, hang on. I'm not getting out. Why am I getting out of the car?
That's probably how I die right there,
Exactly, There's a British Bigfoot Society. I looked them up online, and I called the number and say, hey, I think I've just seen a big cat in the UK. It was from the edge of the road to the middle of the road, so we're talking 5 or 6 feet wide. And so they called back. They called back a few hours later, and they said, you're the 5th person in the area in the last 6 months. A little old lady actually got a photograph of one, drinking out of the reservoir. So they said, you've seen him, who or she,
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely there. So
it's
it's
happening.
shocking.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's an incredible thing. They're such amazing animals to begin with, but yeah,
You know,
seeing them in the wild doing their thing is it's an entirely different thing than seeing something like that in a zoo.
Oh
There's
yeah.
not an ounce of fat on them. There's nothing wobbly in their skin at all. It's all muscle and sinew and just
I
yeah,
know,
Yeah.
I know when
absolutely beautiful.
I know the time when I was in over in Europe and Liverpool, wherever cities, I always felt like someone was in back of me. Like there was some kind of spirit,
Yeah.
and after a while I quit freaking out because it's an old country. And I
Hmm.
was like, wow, there's millions and millions of people have lived through through time. The
Yeah.
spirit's got to be still up in here.
Yeah.
Spirits has to still be around,
Yeah.
you know. So I,
Yeah.
so if I saw a pit bull with rabbit ears, no, man, that's really wow. That would be terrible. I know, honestly, but it really took a while for me to get used to it,
Yeah.
because I was thinking there's someone on my shoulder.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a ghost. I like to see. I saw some castles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt the same way. I just felt after a while, I didn't get nervous about having that feeling, but I knew that it was real, you know.
Hmm.
So if there's any entities or spirits, I believe it is, definitely.
Yeah.
So
There's something going.
yeah,
Yeah.
so every
It's hard
pub
not to
has a
feel the history
ghost.
of something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
So every pub having a ghost or some kind of spirit, it's got to be a bunch of them
Mhm.
fighting for their rankings. I've
They're
been
all
to, I've
taking
gone to,
turns.
yeah, I've been going to this watering hole for years.
Hey,
So
time's up. It's my turn to haunt.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can smell the ale. I can smell the
Yeah.
ale,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Were
Were
you
you
big
big
on
on exploring? Whoops.
oh, go ahead. Go
Well,
ahead,
were
Jerry.
you big on exploration of historic places as a child, Sam? And did you have a favorite?
Not so much as exploring, but I was a big fan of the movie The Monster Squad. I don't know
Oh,
if
Oh
same.
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
familiar with that, of
Oh,
course.
yeah, of course.
It's kind of the Goonies, but for Universal Monsters, right?
Mhm.
uh,
A bunch of kids get together, all different age ranges.
Those
mm,
are
Um,
what is it? What is it? Wolfman has nads.
Nards.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Nards, nards, that's what it was. Yeah, Wolfman has
Right, yeah.
nards.
But the redesign of the sort of the creature from the Black Lagoon, where they call him the Gill Man in the Monster Squad. I
mm,
thought that was a wonderful design for the time to
Yeah.
make it look more realistic as an actual creature, which really did inspire me for my own art later on
uh-huh,
to illustrate creatures as though, what would they look like if they were real or if they are real? How
Yeah.
should they be represented as real creatures? But as
Yeah.
far as exploring places, I was always wandering off into forests. Any lake had to have a monster, surely.
Yeah.
So I'd be
mm.
throwing in hooks with bits of sausage on on strings, see if I could catch anything. But yeah, any churchyard at night, I'd go and hang out. Even into my teens, you discover cigarettes and alcohol and girls. You're still
Yeah.
hanging out in graveyards. Um, it was just the 90s, the rise of industrial music, and
Mhm.
everyone was sort of now hanging out in these underneath railroad bridges and, very
Yeah.
Lost Boys kind of
Yeah.
taverns. And where I grew up was at the seaside. It was at Blackpool, was 10 minutes up the road from me. And so
Oh,
that was pretty much the same sort of vibe as the Lost Boys, this seaside town
yeah.
full of goths and punks and, all industrial kids growing up in my age.
Yeah.
So the 90s England, haunted houses, we would occasionally get a group of friends together. There was a place called Chingle Hall in maybe 30-minute drive from the town where I grew up in, and I've stayed there many times. And that was supposed to be a 700-year-old building It had been an orphanage at one point. It had been a monastery at another time. It had been an old people's home or a private home,
Yeah.
a little missionary place. They used to hide monks in the walls during the persecution. And, all these years later, it's still there. And they've kept it up as almost like a living museum. And you could stay the night for, I think it was maybe 60 pounds, English pounds per person. But they would only be maybe 7 or 8 people could stay at a time. And I'd stay there and we would smell things like freshly baked bread, even though there's nobody cooking,
Wow.
You'd smell flowers like lavender, but there was no air fresheners or things going on,
Wow.
And it was such an old building. There was no way that there was anything hidden in the walls to kind of be fake, Whereas today, if you go to, I believe it's the Zach Baggins Museum up in Vegas, apparently that's rigged with all kinds of electronic pulses that make you feel weird and make you feel sick. But this couldn't have had any of that because it was so old, to the point where the floorboards from the ceiling, you could put your fingers through. So anyone upstairs could see your fingers coming through the floor and wiggling.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
My friend Scott, he's about 6'7". He was doing that at the time. That was quite funny. But we had some strange, really strange experiences in there. First time I went was, I think, was school. In fact, in high school, they took us there for like a day trip. And of course, I had to go back several times throughout the years. The last time, it was the absolute, no pun intended, but the nail in the coffin for me to say, yes, absolutely, there is paranormal, ghostly something happening here.
Yeah.
But I'll say that with a caveat that I didn't see a ghost. But if you imagine a big, heavy armchair, and if you imagine that being in the corner of a room, and say the room is 20 feet by 20 feet, not very big, and then you leave that room and you go down the corridor and you stay in another room for 5 minutes, you come back and that chair is now in the doorway and it's somehow moved by itself.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that just gave us chills, and there's absolutely nobody else in the house. Nobody walked past the door for us to go and move this chair.
Yeah.
And it was just fireworks in my head, just this massive epiphany of, I'm convinced.
Yeah.
There's no way this chair could have moved.
Yeah.
And, again, I didn't see a ghost. We didn't hear any ghostly, nothing. But that chair, big old armchair, somehow made it across the room by itself and was in the doorway facing us, almost to say, look what we can do.
Yeah.
Or it was some kind of time slip or some kind of just the universe playing, saying, hey, I'm here. Look at this. I'm here. It was so weird. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I've had a few experiences, and it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around something like that, I had a friend, we were playing in my bedroom when we were in high school with a Ouija board, and sitting there, and the thing starts, going really fast, and I'm like, he thinks I'm doing it, and I think he's doing it, and then it just shot off, and the thing stabbed into the wall, like stayed in there.
Wow.
And I'm like, all right, whatever, whatever.
Yeah, really.
But
I don't want that
like, yeah, it seemed to have opened some kind of portal in that house, and we would hear. My dad was in Israel at the time, and my mom and my sisters and I were in the house, and it was just us. And we'd hear stuff walking up and down the stairway in the middle of the night. And my mom would yell, "Joe, get back in bed!" And I'm already in bed, and nobody's out of bed. And I had under my wall, where the head of my bed was, downstairs was the door that went into the garage from the kitchen. It was on a big spring, slammed real hard if you didn't let it close gently. And we're in there, we're in bed. It's like 11 o'clock at night, and someone comes into the house, through the garage, but nobody's come into the house through the garage. There's nobody there, but that door slammed, and everybody in the house woke up like, okay, who's in the house? And there was nobody there. And my mom was pretty pissed at me for messing around with a Ouija board in her house.
Yeah, it's funny. I've never done one. I've collected them. I have a number on the wall in the lounge,
Mhm.
big, enormous antique mirror right in the middle.
Yeah.
One of those mirrors that's so old, it's got the kind of the black stain where the mirror's kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah. Is it the old
It's old.
Mercury
yeah,
mirror?
yeah, yeah, the silver
Mercury
sort of
and lead.
degraded.
Silver stuff. Yeah.
And the Ouija boards is sort of, they're on the wall either side of it, so it's almost like a huge doorway.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
But I mean, I've never done one. I'm more of a gatekeeper, I guess, but
Mhm.
I've never. My uncle said to never mess with one, and I believed
Yeah.
him.
No, I haven't messed with one since, and it gave me much more of a respectful idea in my head when
Yeah,
doing anything paranormal to begin with. Because it is there is a gate, and there's something on the other side of that gate if you believe in that sort of thing. And there's gatekeepers on that side, there's gatekeepers on this side. You have to pay a toll when you go through there. So
yeah, yeah.
so
You know,
it cracks me up when I'm watching shows like the Zach Baggins stuff where he's like
yeah,
trying to antagonize the ghosts, and I'm like, oh, come on, dude, come on.
yeah. He gets possessed every episode, which
He gets rings every episode.
you know, it's a
Oh my
pretty.
God.
But the Ouija board thing, I mean, obviously, they've only really been the ones we know today.
Mhm.
It's only been, just over 100 years ago that they sort of came on the scene.
Mhm.
And if you know your history, you'll know that the spiritualist movement at the time and before that was, if someone died in your family and you wanted to reach out to them, you'd call a spiritualist
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
almost like a therapist in a way, would come over and sit with you and talk with you. And then they'd all hold hands or they'd do a seance and they'd sit around and they'd talk, candles, the works. No Ouija
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
They were the conduit sometimes. They would speak for the deceased person or they would relay a message. And that's how it was done. So when the Ouija board came along, it started to very quickly have this stigma attached to it because spiritualists were losing money. They were
Yeah.
losing their job. They were saying, don't use that. It's evil. When it
Yeah.
wasn't, it was just
Yeah.
a toy. It was
It's
a
just a
parlor
toy.
trick.
Yeah.
And so they were losing money and they put this kind of this stigma and this reputation of evil and danger attached to the Ouija board, when really it was just because they wanted the money. They wanted the job.
Yeah.
Don't go buy this. Hire me instead.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that those things are not doorways. That doesn't mean they were wrong.
Yeah.
It could be both.
Yeah.
And I believe it very much is. A doorway is a doorway. And
Yeah.
really the be all and end all of it is it's all about intention. So
Yeah.
if you're wanting to reach
make
the
it-
other side anyway,
Yeah.
then you're a spiritualist,
Yeah.
like it or not. So
Yeah.
be careful, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be very careful. Yeah. My sisters told me that I was telling them for a while after that happened that there was a ghost sitting outside of my bedroom window, and I don't remember that.
Ooh,
So they're like,
that's
no,
horrible.
you were absolutely convinced that this kid that had been killed at a pizza shop like down the street, because we were trying to talk to that, was
That's creepy.
camped out outside my window, and I'm like, I have no memory of that at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived in Los Angeles pretty much half my life, almost now. I'm still a spring chicken. I'm only 46, but I've had more experiences in Los Angeles, believe it or not,
I
than
do believe it.
when I grew up in England. And I think it's such a melting pot. I mean, it's like New York, it's like London, the rest of England is not like London. If anyone's ever just been to London, England's an incredibly wonderful place full of rolling hills and peaceful places, castles, as Charles has mentioned, and there's plenty of castles.
Yeah.
But in Los Angeles, it seems to be just ingrained with trouble and misery and sadness.
Well,
And
there was a lot of that in the
lots of lost
development.
souls, lots of murder, obviously,
Yeah.
but lots of lost souls, lots of misery.
Yeah.
And it echoes, especially in the sort of the 1920s areas and buildings that still stand in LA.
Yeah.
If you go there, as Charles was saying, you walk into certain places, and like you said there, you get a vibe.
Yeah.
You feel that there's someone or something hanging there.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, like a stain.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that in Los Angeles. I feel that a lot downtown,
Yeah.
in some of the older buildings, especially.
I've gotten
Very
a sense of that down in the
Us.
underground Seattle. I mean, I'm in Washington State, and
Oh wow.
back when they were still doing, I don't know if they're still doing it, but they used to do underground Seattle tours, and occasionally me and some of my friends would break in and go spelunking in the
Right. I've heard of those. Yeah, yeah.
just absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane down there. We, like elevator shafts going way up, and there was a building that we had gotten into one time, and he's like, "Oh, look down there. I think that's a body down there." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "Holy shit, that does look like a body." And yeah,
Wow.
some homeless guy had fallen, and I mean, and yeah, it's
Damn.
crazy,
That's fucked
crazy
up.
stuff. But but being in those buildings, yeah, you feel things, and whether it's just the deprivation of your senses from
Mhm.
being in a dark place, or if it's something actually to it, I'm not sure, but I feel it. And the hair on the back of your neck stands up, you get a little tingle, and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. So
Possessed.
yeah.
I'm not the one.
Yeah, I actually scared my friend Paul. The Enigma. Me and my friend
Oh yeah.
Roger Paul went out to this cemetery in Maltby, and there's this little grave, supposed to be a little kid, and there was this rumor that if somebody laid down on the grave, they couldn't get back up, and I wanted to mess with my friend Paul. So I laid down on this grave. This is the middle of the night. We're in high school. We're out there with like infrared photography equipment and stuff, and I lay down on this thing, and then I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't move, I can't move." He almost crapped his pants. He's running around. I'm like, "Man, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding." But
I'm just kidding. Yeah. I just started swinging. That's terrible.
stick him up, go stick him up.
You can't
Oh,
move. Can you move now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he wasn't happy with me on that.
So,
Oh man. Yeah.
so you have like any kind of legend, or tale, old tale legend, or something that over time it just brings you to have more questions, and desire for answers.
Yeah, there's a place, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a place downtown. You probably know the hotel. And it has a rich history of violence. Serial killer Richard Ramirez lived there, the Night Stalker,
Oh yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. He lived there for a while, apparently, rented a room up there. There was a fairly recent urban legend of a young girl called Elisa Lamb. She was a traveling student, I believe, from Canada.
Hmm.
And she had stayed in the hotel, but she was on certain medication for certain issues that she had. And so the urban legend is that she went missing. Um, and in terms of it being an urban legend, I mean, this happened, but
Yeah.
the circumstances around it are very, very suspicious,
Mhm.
borderline paranormal, because prior to her going missing or being, searched for within the building until they found her, she was in fact in the building. The residents had complained about the water tasting funny, or that they turned the taps on in the hotel rooms, and black water or brown water would come out.
Yeah.
Turned out that her body was in fact in the water tank on the roof.
Yeah. There's a movie
People,
about
Wow.
this. Yeah.
people had been showering in it and drinking,
Ugh.
Ugh.
making tea and coffee, with her decaying body in this water tank
Yeah.
for I think 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
Essence of human. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is
until
dreaming.
until they found her. But the strange thing of it is there was no way she could have gotten through two fire doors without setting off the alarm, nor could she climb up onto the roof, up a ladder into the steel drum, take the lid off, get inside, remove all her clothes, and close the lid by herself.
Yeah.
It was just kind
Yeah.
of, she would have had to have been some kind of contortionist Houdini to have been able to do it. It's not impossible, but the likeliness of it in the dark,
Yeah.
Not setting off the alarms is a strange one. People were suspecting that maybe she was murdered by somebody who worked at the hotel, which is maybe why the alarms didn't go off.
Yeah.
All of those kind of creepy mysteries surround it. But there's only a little bit of closed circuit CCTV camera footage of her from the inside of an elevator where she's apparently pressing all the buttons. You're like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And then the doors wouldn't close, which is the odd part. For whatever reason, the elevator doors don't close. It's almost as though she jammed it by pressing so many buttons because the doors don't close. And she occasionally leans out of the elevator and looks down the corridor both ways, but does this weird thing with her hands as though she's kind of beckoning someone or talking to someone or trying to grab something that isn't there because there's nothing on camera. It's just her doing a strange, almost goth dance, you know?
Yeah.
And then she ducks back into the elevator and hides, and then she peers out again. And that's the only footage. And by that, nobody knows why she was acting that way or why in fact she climbed into a water tank on her own.
Yeah.
That one is a spooky one, you know?
Yeah. Well, we have
And
to
that's
look into
downtown
that.
LA.
Cecil Hotel, I believe.
That's the
Yeah.
one. Thank you. My mind was completely blank as
Documentaries on that. American Horror Story did a series about them. But yeah, it's really creepy, that footage.
Yeah.
It is.
The movie, what is it? Dark Water, I think is the name of the movie.
Very similar. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, that's a
I think this
really
happened
disturbing
after that
story.
film.
Yeah.
Well, the other really strange connection to that was her name, Elisa Lam. Apparently, at the same time that in that duration where she had gone missing, there was a test run downtown by the U.S. government of whichever division in hazmat suits and protective gear, doing a sort of a dummy run, like a practice. If there was some kind of viral outbreak, what would they do? So they did kind of a practice rehearsal with all of the equipment, the hazmat suits and stuff, and they did it downtown, right near the Cecil Hotel. And the name of the pretend virus was Lama Lisa.
Oh wow.
Oh.
And so that's really
That's,
yeah.
how did that work?
Jeez.
What are the chances?
Damn. Lisa.
Man.
Yeah, Lama Lisa, Lisa Lam.
Yeah.
So we were going to show some of your artwork. And if you could please talk about those pieces. You have prints and other merchandise available at MrSamShearon.com. And Mr. is spelled out. Now bear with us. Let me make sure that this works correctly as I share my screen. And 1 second, let me go to the other ones first. Bigger.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
You guys see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
What about that one? Scully and Mulder.
Scully and Mulder. What?
Well,
Yeah,
there's your Iron Maiden image. That was a merchandise piece I did for Iron Maiden back in 2007. They were doing the tour back in time again, world tour, and they needed extra artwork because Derek Riggs decided he was kind of overwhelmed at the time and unfortunately couldn't step up to give us enough time to justify the merchandise needs. So they hired several other artists, and I was one of them, to emulate that same vibe from each album. And that was just one element that went onto the merchandise. I think it was on a back print of a T-shirt.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You know that guy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely know that guy.
Wow.
His Uncle Al.
Uncle Al Grits.
Yeah, it's the Filter album there. That's the latest album, The Algorithm. It's out now.
Oh wow, that is
on
amazing.
on vinyl and CD. And I believe you can get different colored vinyl as well. So I think there's a purple one maybe.
Oh wow, Godhead.
It's based on Charles Miller's old band, Godhead. They were the first band signed to Marilyn Manson's record label way back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I believe that was their last album. which was I think that 2008, I think.
Okay.
I love that.
That's
Oh
beautiful.
yeah, that is.
Ministry, Americant. That's
Yeah.
2018. That's
That's a
one of the
Great fucking
the
image.
combat
Man.
images for Ministry. This was after Al had decided to call it a day again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's decided, no, actually, I'm going to do another album. And, I think this is when Trump was just took office and things were sort of, a little chaotic in the world. So Al decided to put an album out. He came out of hiding, in a sense, came out of retirement, rather.
Yeah.
And decided this was going to be another Ministry album.
Ooh.
And there's a
That's
logo I
nice.
did for the same era, or just before that, actually. I think this was for the live albums that they did in Paris.
Mhm.
Al said he wanted to eat that logo.
That's cool.
Ooh, I like
Rob
that.
Zombie's younger brother,
Yeah.
Spider. Great guy, filmmaker himself. He's done a number of horror films now. He's got one in the works at the moment, I believe. But he's a sort of semi-industrial, almost hip-hop. It's really hard to place Power Man sometimes.
Yeah.
They've changed.
Yeah.
Like, every album is completely different, which is great. It's it's pretty unique stuff.
Yeah, I like
like
those guys.
Oh,
There's his older brother, Rob. Again, I believe they're working on another album, Rob Zombie. Blasco, Rob Nicholson's back in the band, as is Riggs. I think they still have Ginger on drums. There's Slayer tour posters.
Sweet.
That was the farewell tour, even though they're now playing the occasional show.
Yeah.
And so much for that. Can you imagine all the people that were crying after they saved up all their pennies to see those final shows?
Oh
I
yeah.
know.
And now they're playing 3 more shows.
Yep.
Let me get out of this. Okay, I'm gonna close this and see if I can bring up the other ones. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. It closed. Let me reshare my screen. All right, can you see that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No?
Oh,
There we go.
Wow.
There's
Okay, so you see
Bucks.
Scully Mulder now? Scully Mulder?
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
That's what I was
Yeah.
referring to.
Yeah, this was for IDW Publishing, the official publisher at the time of the X-Files comic book graphic novel series, and they did all of the X-Files classic comics in a hardback book, and they did 4 of them, and I did the cover for all 4 volumes.
Oh, right on.
And I even signed the covers of these, sitting next to Gillian Anderson at Comic-Con San Diego.
Oh wow.
A number of years ago. She's so sweet, such a nice person. I mean, really. They say never meet your heroes, but she was wonderful. She was really, really nice.
Okay, not to be too creepy, but what kind of perfume does she wear?
I
I can't imagine she doesn't smell.
Right there, I have no idea. It was a shame that David wasn't there, though. But Mr. Duchovny, Jillian's
That's a good phone.
Quite amazing. Quite amazing person. Very diverse in her hairstyles, and yet still looks like Scully.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Oh wow. What is this one?
This was for Nadine Bryant, who's a very famous tattooist who's based down under in Australia.
Oh wow.
I believe. And she wanted a portrait doing for her studio. So this is a good 10, 15 years ago now, when I was doing some biomechanical stuff. I'm starting to bring that back. There's a number of people that I have sort of on a list that I'm slowly getting to of doing portraits of people with pieces of machinery instead of limbs and things.
Yeah, like a leg.
Yeah, like a leg.
Like a leg. I should do you, Charles. In fact, I should build you a physical one.
I'd love to.
That would be great. Yeah, I just get your measurements, and then I'm serious. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, thank you, man. I know. I love Dwayne.
Yeah,
he loves Chicago.
Fun.
He loves Chicago, and me and him hung out a lot. And
that's cool.
And I saw a friend of mine's album, and she was playing Static X. and I was looking at the album, and I was looking at the credits, and I go, "What? This is Static X?" And it was Dwayne. I couldn't believe it. And his hair straight up.
Yeah.
His hair was always long.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
what?
yeah, he was. Yeah,
You know,
he was always nice.
yeah, gone too soon.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, that is wild.
Oh, these are super old. This was one of the zombie portraits that I used to do about 15 years ago. And anybody could email me, and for a small fee, I'd turn them into the undead and their pets if they had them. One person had 3 cats and themselves and their husband done.
Wow.
Yeah, quite a mess. It was sometimes, when you bite off more than you can do, and someone sends you sort of a request to say, "Hey, I'll pay you, but I have 5 dogs," and you think, "Oh my God." So the worst thing to illustrate is fur or hair.
Yeah.
And I illustrate a lot of Bigfoot and Sasquatch books, and doing the hair by hand, like individually, to make it look as though it's
Yeah.
flowing in the right way with the muscles underneath it. Goodness me. Yeah, but when someone says I have 5 dogs, that's really annoying.
Doggone it.
American Head Charge, Tango
Yeah.
Umbrella, the last album. This is 2014, I believe, maybe 2015. And the idea, I never knew this, but does anyone know what Tango Umbrella means?
No.
So I looked it up because that was the name of the album. And apparently there's dials on the sort of the information display, or the controls of an aircraft.
Yeah.
Where they have the fuel dial or the directional dial, all those kind of things, the altitude and whatnot, and the speed and all the other bells and whistles, But there are 2 dials which kind of point the wings and the aircraft in the sort of the direction of where the Earth is in relation to the plane. And if you're flying upside down, if you go into a spin through a cloud or whatever, and you somehow end up upside down, apparently some pilots wouldn't notice, and the dials would be showing the wrong way, literally. They look like 2 breasts with nipples, and so they would say that they were tits up. And
Okay.
if they were tits up, it was also known as Tango Umbrella.
Umbrella. Yeah.
That
That is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
This is a little mechanical biomech version of the Baphomet figure idea, but I call this Baphomet. Copyright right there.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to sort of toy with the idea of a mechanical, almost Mad Max version of a Baphomet, more of a futuristic end of the world apocalypse, something that someone might stick up in an old warehouse and still worship, with real human hands severed hanging there. And in fact, on the original painting, it says on the wrists, solve, coagula, and I have that in binary on those wrists.
Oh, wow.
So anyone who's ever bought this print, they can see the binary. And if anyone ever didn't know that and looked up the binary, they would have found that it actually does say solve, coagula.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh wow, there's the monk. There's the rabbit.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, that's my my mechanical zombunny, biomech bunny. Yeah, that was a fun one. That's a popular one. There's a few T-shirts floating around. A friend of mine in Hong Kong has a T-shirt she wears with that on it. It's quite nice to see.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Yeah, but
Love this one.
Yeah.
The infamous Edgar Allan Poe portrait. This has been stolen, plagiarized, used on book covers.
Oh, really?
Theater banners. I've had this shut down by my managers so many times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Usually by people, I hate to say it, but in the Far East, that will rip off many artists. Joey James Hernandez is a great artist from New York. He does a lot of stuff for Typo Negative back in the day, even today. And a lot of his work gets stolen as well. And you'll see it popping up on eBay as T-shirts and things like that. But Poe, that I illustrated, I did a number of portraits, another one being H.P. Lovecraft. I did an Arthur Crowley at one point, but they do pop up here and there, mostly Poe. And it's people sort of reselling his poetry on Amazon in book form, but they'll use my artwork as the cover without permission.
Without permission, yeah, that's always
and,
awesome.
and with most of my artwork, it holds the U.S. copyright, so that's bought and paid for. People are just stepping in, really dangerous water when they steal things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, Joe.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
This one, this is called Face to Face, and it was a friend of mine, Ken Gerhardt, did a book, The Essentials Guide to Sasquatch and Bigfoot. Essential Guide to Bigfoot and Sasquatch.
Ken.
And I always wanted to do a sort of real size comparison, because I've done a number of book covers for David Weatherly and David Hatcher Childress and a bunch of other people in the sort of cryptozoology unexplained circles, and various documentaries and things like that. And I've never really done one with a person, and I don't really think I've seen many out there that show the size comparison of a Bigfoot with a person. There's a few artworks out there that really put them together. So it was sort of a good opportunity to kind of nail that one and really put it out there.
Yeah, he looks like he's just about to shit.
Yeah. Both of them do. Oh
Yeah.
my God, it's a human.
Now there's the H.P. Lovecraft.
That's Lovecraft.
The father of cosmic horror, in a sense.
Yep.
The Godfather. He's an interesting character.
Yeah.
Very influential.
And, I was seeing somebody was talking about he's it's like Maryland, right? So you have to now read all of his books in an accent.
Yeah, and you have to sort of, acknowledge some of the racism that was.
Well, for sure, absolutely.
Because back in the day, he was, along with Bram Stoker and everybody, he was just writing about things that they saw, and the mindset at the time is not the same mindset of today.
No.
And so when some people might have called for certain books to be banned, but I have to say that when a piece of history is just erased, it almost does more damage, because those things should remain to be seen and to be studied of a time when, that was when people thought certain things were a certain way. And we certainly don't think that way now. But it is a snapshot. It's a window. And if you've ever read Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's very similar in a sense that when, at the beginning of the book, Jonathan Harker is traveling through Europe towards Transylvania, he's describing the different people and the different cultures that he's experiencing along the way that he meets. Not just the language of the dialect, but the clothing, the color of the skin, the hair, the hairstyles, the hats they wore. He's describing it all. And he's describing how strange it is and how, otherworldly it is. And I think H.P. Lovecraft took it a little further and was very demeaning towards certain people, particularly African American people. And so you have to really take it with a pinch of salt these days when you read it, because the rest of it is really quite fantastic stuff in terms of monsters and fiction. If you can put the blatant racism aside for a moment,
Yeah. And you have to read it in that awesome accent too.
If you can, I'm not sure I could, but can you do the accent?
I can't. Get my station wagon.
What?
Oh, there you go.
There's a chupacabra from Texas, known as the blue dogs or the terror dogs. The vampires of the desert. It's very strange. I mean, they found those. They found several of them, and they're sort of emaciated coyotes with mange. But when they were taken into study, do biopsies on them, they turned out to be a hybrid. They weren't sure what they were. They were kind of half dog, half coyote, interbred, with bluish skin. Some of them had a few toes. very strange animals. You know, so it is pure cryptozoology. Nobody knows what it is.
Yeah.
Damn. Ooh.
This one was fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is from Iowa, and
That's the what the fucking hell is the name of that thing? The Van Meter? Is that
yeah,
it?
that's right. Yep, the Van
Yeah.
Meter Visitor,
Yeah.
or Monster, whichever you prefer. Some
Yeah.
people described it, and we're talking Wild West. I mean, people
Mhm.
shot their guns at this in the town. You know, it came in the
Yeah.
middle of the night. It shot a light out of its horn on its nose, and
Yeah.
it looked like a cross between a person and a dragon.
Yeah.
Some people said it was alien. Other people said it came out of a mine shaft and that there was a baby one,
Yeah,
and that
they
they
actually
chased it
filled in
back
that
into the
mine
mine
shaft.
shaft.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
they chased it in there and it was
chased
never
it in
seen
and
again.
tried to bury it in. Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff fascinates me. I forget where it was, but there's another legend, also to do with a mine shaft where they'd broken open a boulder that was blocking a certain route that they dynamited out,
Yeah.
and the boulder split open, and some kind of pterosaur or pterodactyl like flying reptile came out of the rock as though it had been trapped and suspended in animation for millions of years
Wow.
Wow.
and
Yeah.
flew away. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Damn.
that's one of those cool sort of old wives' tales.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
fisherman's tales kind of thing. It was this big.
Yeah.
It was big. It breaks my shoulder.
Yeah. Well, who knows? You know, who knows?
And probably.
So
Probably
Clive
did.
Barker is easily one of my favorite horror writers. And can you talk about your involvement with the Books of Blood motion book?
Yeah, I met Clive Barker, who, like myself, was also born in Liverpool, England,
Yeah.
back in 2013. So just 11 years ago. And he was doing a signing event at what is now gone, but it was the Dragonfly Club, a bar in Los
Mhm.
Angeles, down in Hollywood.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, it's a great old
Yeah.
little place, but really, really great.
Yeah.
I was in a couple of music videos in there as well. Awesome little bar. But he was doing a signing on Halloween of all nights. I mean, what a perfect night to meet Clive Barker on Halloween.
Man.
Um, and he was lovely. You know, he was so nice. Again, they say don't meet your heroes, but he was really nice. He was, I mean, what a friendly guy. You know, shook my hand. And as soon as I told him that I was also from Liverpool, well, you know, that was it. He wanted to know everything about, you know, me. And he was saying, why did you move to Los Angeles? And do you love it? And I said, well, actually, I miss the rain. And he said, what are you, crazy? And I mean, he was nice. You know, he was funny. He was poking fun at me and stuff. But he knew everywhere where I had grown up, where my mother was from,
Yeah.
Norris Green in Liverpool and Broad Lane, and all the things that people from Liverpool would be familiar with, maybe.
Yeah.
And I just said to him, I said, you know, look, I'm a really big fan of your work. I'd love to work with you at some point on a project. And there's me forgetting to say what I actually do, you know. And so he, well, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm an illustrator. You know, I draw and paint and that kind of thing. And he said, oh, great. And so he called over his associate, who became a friend of mine, Ben Mears, and we swapped cards. And you know, days later, he called me and said, hey, come up to the house. Let's have a chat. And we have a project that we'd love you to be involved with.
Right
We
on.
did. We managed to do. The plan was to do the Books of Blood as an animated series, but not as a fully animated cartoon. It was, as you mentioned there, a motion book where
Yeah.
you'd go online and you could read it at your own pace. So
Yeah.
you could click almost like a graphic novel. The scenes would change as you click, something else would move, and it would be slightly animated. So you could read this graphic novel that had come to life. And so they hired me to illustrate them all. Unfortunately, there was no funding to do this, and there was no distribution to do this. And so we did one, and we released it, and we put it out at Comic-Con San Diego, and then we did, and that was the Book of Blood. So that came out, and then after that, we were sort of at a dead end because we sadly didn't really have the funds to continue because, of course, we all need to eat and we all need to pay bills,
Yeah.
and we couldn't just do this for fun.
Yeah.
And so we had to put it on the shelf, which is a shame, but we did one.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
Oh man.
That's terrible.
yeah.
Have you worked with him since? I mean, have you talked to him since?
I've done, yeah. I mean, we've done things since then. I illustrated some. I did a cover for Hellraiser Bestiary, which is issue 1 with Pinhead on the front cover. I did some illustrations for the Hellraiser anthology. Someone had written a short Hellraiser story with all the Cenobites based on Clive's work, and there were a number of stories by a number of different writers and a number of different artists as well. And so I was one of those to illustrate one, and so that was done. But Clive's great. I believe he's doing well. He's doing his last tour of signings. So if anyone ever wanted to meet Clive, I believe now is the last time you're going to be able to sort of see him at a convention and get his autograph, that kind of photo opportunity.
Yeah.
He's decided that's it. He's living a private life now, and each to their own. If that's what he wants to do, that's his life.
Well, he's certainly put in the time and earned it. So
he's written enough.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Joe. Yeah. So now.
So my grandparents had some amazing classical paintings when I was growing up. One that stands out is of a stag in the middle of a dark forest. Ornate frame, everything about it, including the musty smell of the room, was just intriguing for me. I was always trying to see into the dark shadows of the paintings, and my imagination just run wild. Do you have any memories like that? Some paintings that really stood out to you, maybe inspired some of what you do?
Gosh, there's so many. Again, mentioning Clive Barker, of course, a big fan of not just his writing, but he's also a painter. And I don't think, unless they're a fan of Clive, I don't think many people know that, but he was quite prolific. Still paints and draws, but where he had his offices up in the Hollywood Hills, next to it, he had another house. He owned sort of 3 houses in a row, and one of them was the office building, but also the sort of Clive Barker Museum. And in there was not only a sort of library room of all of his books he'd written, but there was a sort of a basement area studio where he would paint. And it was full of 2,000 canvases all stacked up in this storage that he just never stopped. And when you think of time and how long it takes to do anything, to do one painting, we're not talking something that someone will just crappily throw together in an afternoon. These were full-on paintings that he would take time and do, and they're all in his style. He's not just doing different things all the time. I mean, of course, he's experimenting like any artist would, but you can tell everything is his style in his way. And that, to me, was inspiring to see how much he just was able to fit in alongside writing, which is, and the films, he's produced and directed. I mean, he really does deserve a day off, when you think about it like that. But in terms of paintings, I remember being a small child. I think I was maybe 7 years old, and I had a Hans Christian Andersen book, and I still have this book. It's at my parents' house, and I remember one day, this is in the old haunted house where I grew up in, on the edge of a forest, and I opened the book one day after flicking through it and looking at these wonderful full-color illustrations and paintings in the book of all these different fairy tales. There was the Snow Queen and Thumbelina and, all these different Hans Christian Andersen tales. And at the front of the book, there was this wonderful painting of him sitting on the ground underneath a tree. And around him are, he's holding a book himself, and he's sort of looking at the viewer. He's looking at you. And around him are all these sort of gnomes and fairies and little elves that are sort of sat around these toadstools and mushrooms all around him while he's sat under this tree. And I'm a kid, and I'm looking at this painting, and I'm thinking, wow, that's fascinating. All those details, all those strange little creatures. And I said out loud, I openly spoke, and I talked to the page. I'm 7 years old, and I said, "You're really quite clever, aren't you?"
Hmm.
And I swear to God, he nodded in the painting. It
Oh,
moved.
wow.
He
Wow.
nodded, kind of winked at me for a second, and I slammed the book shut and I threw it across the room, and it slid across the floor underneath my wardrobe. And there it stayed for months because I was terrified of this book.
Terrifying.
Oh, wow.
Damn.
And that was in a haunted house, so I don't know what was going on, but that inspired me.
I
Yeah.
bet it did. Oh
Yeah,
my
I'll say.
God, that's awesome.
Yeah, and of course, I'm 7 years old. I wasn't on any drugs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Jeez.
Oh man.
Damn.
That's
So,
cool. Thank you for telling me that.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was messed up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's up for what's going up for now? What are you doing these days?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm working on a book.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Um,
Is it the one we talked about?
that is the one we talked about, Charles. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm working on in a very sort of inspired by Clive Barker way. I have to sort of tip my hat and say that's a big inspiration. But
Yeah.
I'm doing 13 short stories, horror stories,
Yeah.
and it's due out next year. And it's all set around the Christmas period. So every story is a twisted, dark
Mhm.
story that just so happens to take place around winter. And it's not your typical sort of, oh, Krampus, or,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. It's
Little.
a lot of it's everyday horror.
Yeah.
And there's one that's even set in space, and there's a whole bunch of astronauts, and one of them's named Charles Levi. So, and
Nice.
that one's written and finished, so he's in there.
Oh, thanks.
So are people hearing about this right now for the first time?
This is the first time I'm really mentioning it. This is your exclusive.
Freaking exclusive,
Oh, wow.
yes. Right on, man.
Oh,
But yeah,
thanks, Jim.
it's due out next autumn.
Mhm.
It's let's say currently it's at the 180,000 word mark. So it's
Oh, wow.
it's a thick book of horror stories. My manager says, "Oh, you may have to trim that down a bit once you get it to the editor," but
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy with the way it is.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
okay. Yeah.
Damn. Man, I'm looking
Oh man,
forward.
that's awesome.
Do you have
Yeah.
any other books?
I'm astronaut.
Currently, there's once the Christmas book is done, I'm told I have to follow it up with a Halloween book. So
Okay.
it's all systems go. But I'm in that sort of strange place now where on one side of the table I have books that I have to illustrate for other people.
Mhm.
Then
Yeah.
there's album sleeves, an album artwork that I have to do for bands. I just finished Jason Charles Miller's new album, which is due out later in the year, in the autumn. He was, incidentally, if people don't know who Jason Charles Miller is, he used to be the singer for Godhead,
Yeah.
the industrial band.
Oh,
But Jason's doing dark country, more country rock these days. And I've done pretty much all of his album covers.
Oh, right on.
But he's fantastic. If you like country, definitely check out Jason Charles Miller. And if you don't like country, definitely check out Jason Charles Miller because
okay.
you'll
Yeah.
be
Excellent.
surprised. You really
Yeah.
will be surprised. He's definitely unique. And as I say, I just finished his album. His single comes out in a few days,
Oh, right
Digging
on.
in the Dust. But yeah, aside from that, it's juggling the writing and the artwork, doing a lot of things. And San Diego Comic-Con's coming up in, I think, 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll be down there. That'll be my 13th appearance at San Diego. So yeah, that'll be fun.
You bringing anything special with you to that?
Just my girlfriend.
There you go.
Just
All
a
right.
girl.
Do you have time to
Good
check anything
question.
out while you're there? Or are you just working?
Honestly, every year I've ever gone, I've basically been there to sort of see what's popular, what's hot, what's the latest thing,
Yeah.
to see whether I could sort of find a little place for my own work, because it's really hard to not only be seen in an ocean of crap, but in an ocean of really good stuff, it's even, it's more difficult to stand out. But if there's a certain style, if there's a certain genre or a movement, I will see if that works for me. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But quite often, more often than not, I'm really just doing my own thing. I'm never looking for anything in particular. But if I see something really interesting at Comic-Con, I'll go and have a look at it. There's fellow artists and friends of mine who are down there that I'll always go and support and say hi to. So it's just nice to see friends and get together. Usually the nightlife at San Diego Comic-Con is really the big draw for a lot of people, is seeing old friends, getting back together, going to the different booths and speaking to the publishers and saying, hey, it's been a while. That's nice to network. It's really good.
That's got to be a networking
Absolutely
situation there. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that's pretty much my schedule until Christmas.
Yeah.
So speaking of Christmas, we saw the creepy Christmas playing cards in the coloring book. Still a little early for Christmas, but you want to take us on a little run through this madness and what this is about?
Yeah, the creepy Christmas is it's very much attached to the book I'm writing. But this is my sort of dark Christmas world that I've pieced together, my little universe. And you can get these as greeting cards, and there's 40 different characters, individual cards, 3 different sets. And there's a playing card set coming out this year as well. So if you like playing cards, drinking games, whatever. There's some Christmas monsters on the playing cards that are due out this autumn for Christmas as well. But that's all in store. It's all in store every year. Christmas cards galore. So if you don't like Santa Claus and you don't like the Christmas thing, a lot of people prefer Halloween. But I always say that, if you do a little digging and a little research, you'll find that Christmas is actually darker and scarier than Halloween. It's the original time of death and ghost stories. People used to sit around the fire and tell ghost stories, and it's the creepy, dark time of year, more so than Halloween. Halloween's really about the harvest and sort of celebrating the dead. Which is great. Everyone loves spooky Halloween, but it's
but Christmas,
making Christmas, bringing the spooky
folklore
back to Christmas, man. That's awesome. Now I saw that you have a Patreon, and I saw something on there about Seance with Sam. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that name it kind of throws people off, because people think, oh, you talk to the dead, or you do Ouija boards, or you're a psychic or whatever. It's none of that. It's none of that at all. Seance literally means session, so it's a session with me, and I draw live. I just draw live on camera. People could hang out in the chat. I talk back and forth.
Fucking awesome.
People ask me questions, or they just talk about, hey, did you see this horror film recently? And I'll say, oh yeah, or whatever. And it's just a hangout for however many hours on a Wednesday and a Saturday. But I'm hoping to do more live sessions soon, where I'm just sitting there drawing monsters.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Is it drawing monsters and having conversations while you're doing it? That's so fucking cool, dude. So everybody out there, anybody interested in getting with Mr. Sam Shearon on Patreon, you have the opportunity to sit and hang out with him while he's drawing, man. How fucking cool is that? Jeez.
You were an actor in a stage production of Dracula in 2016. Did you come from a theater background, or was this just a new endeavor for you, Sam?
I don't come from any acting background whatsoever. It was really something that I did a little acting in London in a theater group back in 2006, I think, 2005, long time ago. But it was never really a pursuit. I was always the visual arts guy, the illustrator. Acting was never really on the table. in school or college. It wasn't something that I pursued, but it was always something that I was interested in, because we all watch films, and you'll always see a film where you think, I could do better than that. What's this? But really, I'd moved to Hollywood, a number of years ago, and eventually I just sort of thought to myself, I'm sitting on the doorstep of Hollywood. Maybe I should just give it a try. And so I joined an online acting agency and put some headshots up, wrote a little bio, and saw what was available. And sure enough, something popped up, a theater production of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and they were looking for Dracula. So I applied online, and then I got a call back to say, hey, not a call back, but an interview appointment taken to go and audition. And I got in an Uber and I went across, from Hollywood over into Burbank to this black box theater in the Valley, and I met the director, and in the waiting room there were 3 or 4 other Draculas that were long hair, bearded guys, and then a couple of girls who were going for the part of Mina and Lucy. And one by one we were called to go into the main room, which was just a basic stage and an audience set up with lights. And we were told to prepare a 1-minute dialogue, a monologue of something. And of course, I'd never done this in my life. I was just thinking, well, I've done theatre in London, but I've never had to audition something like this. This is the real deal. Oh my God, what the hell am I doing? And I tried to find some things online to recite. I was thinking, should I find some Shakespeare and maybe read a paragraph of that? What am I supposed to do? Should I find some Dracula text from the actual novel and maybe just read some of that? And in the end, I thought, well, I'll just go with what I know, because the last thing I want to do is forget something before I've begun, So I thought, well, what do I know off by heart? So I decided to take the lyrics from the song Black Number One by Type O Negative.
Oh, wow.
I turned it into a spoken word.
Wow.
The verses of the song. And the director said, okay, when you're ready. And I just started, reeling off the lyrics in a sort of a Christopher Lee tone, Christopher Lee, if anyone doesn't know, played Dracula in the 1970s. British actor, played all the villains. He was a Bond villain. He played Saruman in Lord of the Rings. Anyway, so I did a sort of a...
He's one of the legit badasses on the planet.
He's legit,
He's been in more than 400 films. He was related to God knows who. He's done everything. But anyway, I went in there as Christopher Lee and recited Type O Negative. Couldn't be any stranger. And the director sort of dropped his pen and he's sort of saying, well, what was that? And I explained to him, and he said, okay, great. If you could just wait outside for a minute, I'll talk to you in a minute. And, prior to this, other guys had gone in and done their bit. And they were reciting Shakespeare, and I could hear it through the wall and through the air conditioning duct. I could hear their voices booming all this Shakespeare. And there's me in the waiting room thinking, what am I doing? Why am I here? And then when I went in and I did the thing, and he said, wait outside. And then he called me back in. Only when I went in, there was a girl there who had been in the waiting room. And then he gave us these sides, these notes, which were what he'd written for Bram Stoker's Dracula, his version of it. And I was supposed to be Dracula talking to this Mina Harker girl, and we read off each other. And then he said, okay, and he sent the girl out and called in a different girl. And then I thought, I might be onto something here, because he's not telling me to go away. And sure enough, he was trying different girls to see if I had chemistry. And long story short, the next day he called me and said, if you're interested, we'd like to give you the part as Dracula. And the rest is history. I did 20 shows. Each show was 2 hours long, and I died every night and got to kiss the girl. It was amazing.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's
So-
great.
And the best part, the
like
really
that?
best part of it, it was great because a lot of my friends came to see the show. A lot of my friends in and around Los Angeles. One particular night, 14 friends showed up that I know, and so having to perform a 2-hour show seriously,
Yeah.
where you're at one point you're breaking down crying hysterically, and the next minute you're enraged and you're murdering someone, and then you're making out with a girl, and it's all,
Yeah.
you got to do that in front of your friends, and it was really quite an experience. But
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved stepping into a different world. It was so, I don't know, what an experience.
So I can
Are
get
you
on
thinking
stage.
again?
What was that?
Are you thinking about doing something like that again?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm always, I'm popping up in music videos as an extra here and there, but to do an actual role in a movie or,
Yeah.
even theater again, yeah, I'm definitely putting it on there. It's just, in all honesty, it's finding the time.
Yeah.
And someone say, well,
Yeah.
you're not serious then, but I'm writing a book, I'm doing
Yeah.
artwork.
Yeah.
I really do have to find the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
But
it
yeah.
comes down to.
Did that production ever get any kind of filming? I mean, did anybody videotape it or anything? Is there any place we might be
Someone
able
took
to
an
see it?
amateur video of it, but I don't know where that ended up. And I remember reviewing it. It wasn't great. It was almost like very low lit. It wasn't professionally filmed, basically. No disrespect to the guy who did it. It was like, yeah, great, thanks for filming.
Some of those are very fun to watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the camera's all over the place, and in and out of focus.
Yeah. Like, I feel a little sick,
Sound
but
is
this
off.
is really fun.
The sound isn't right, and it looks
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's all at the wrong angle. Yeah, so
Gives you
it would have been nice to
high school vibes of being in drama.
exactly. Yeah, it really did look like a high school vibe. Yeah, in fact, it took me back to when I played St. George when I was about 4 years old or something. And the dragon was played by several kids inside a large costume.
Yeah.
And I was hitting it with the sword, and all the kids inside the costume were crying, and they had to get me to stop. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Oh man.
Sam, is there anything else you would like to talk about or promote with us today?
Off the top of my head, as always, I can never remember, and I will remember afterwards.
Afterwards.
So I'll say no. But it was great talking to you guys, and I'm going to go and drink some tea now, and probably get in the pool because it's sweltering hot here.
Oh yeah.
I just came back from England. I was in England for 5 weeks visiting my family, some of my old school friends, while I was there, and the weather was great. It was nice and rainy and cool and fresh. And then I was really looking forward to coming back to LA. I missed my girlfriend, so I was looking forward to coming back. And as soon as I came back, it was just, you step off the airplane at LAX and the heat hits you and you can't breathe and it smells like plastic.
Yeah.
It's just, you're breathing in pollution. And now, the first few days back, I'm sitting in front of my laptop trying to write emails and catch up with things, and I can't even think straight, So
yeah, but that pool's sounding pretty good. It's a little warm in Seattle right now too, and
I bet. Yeah,
it's in the hundreds here.
It's not that hot here yet, but I grew up in the South, so I kind of miss having a pool around every once in a while especially when it gets this hot. But
my girlfriend's from Florida originally.
Yeah, which part?
Yes.
I don't know.
I was
been with her 6 years,
in the
and
dead center in Orlando. Grew up next to Disney World, about 5 minutes away, which explains a lot about me if you get to know me.
Disney.
I've never been. I've never been.
You've been to have you been to the Disneyland
In Anaheim.
in Anaheim?
Oh, I went to Anaheim once. Yeah, one morning, my friend Christina picked me up. It was, I think we got there at 10 a.m. and this was in 2010, and it was pouring down with rain,
Yeah.
and there was nobody there, and it was
wow.
wonderful.
Nobody there.
It was
Oh,
wonderful.
man. That sounds optimal right there.
Yeah. I went on the Indiana Jones
The
ride.
Anaheim location could fit in the parking lot of the Orlando location. But still it was hell of a lot of fun. I went there on my honeymoon back was it 89, 90, something like that.
Wow.
And had a good bit of fun out there.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I prefer I'm not a fan of Disney. I'm really not a fan of the roller coasters.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
that's my
you know,
big thing right
honestly,
there. I love the freaking roller coasters. Went out to
I
Knott's
hate
Berry
'em.
Farm and
I can't do
Magic
it.
Mountain. You can't
I
do
can't
it. Oh man.
I
Yeah,
can't do it.
But you've
I
been
don't.
searching for Bigfoot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing about sitting on top of the mountain in Oregon in the dark until sunrise, surrounded by bears.
Yeah.
Another thing is being strapped into a piece of metal, thinking you're going to die.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
I've been in car crashes. I don't like that.
Yeah, no, I've been in a few of those myself. Yeah. But I tell you what, if
Yeah.
you happen to get back up to Seattle at some point, especially if
Yeah.
you can't do anything Bigfoot wise, let me know.
Oh,
I'll join
absolutely.
you. Yeah,
Oh, that'd be
absolutely.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've been out there a number of times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
No,
good.
fun stuff. Yeah, if I get out to LA, we'll go to Magic Mountain.
How about this? We'll go to Magic Mountain, right? And I'll hold your balloon, and I'll just
Yeah.
while you go on the
you stand at
ride.
the side with the churros and the balloons. Yeah.
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 There we go.
Yeah. I'll hold all your merchandise, and you can get on the
Yeah.
ride.
Right on.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
That sounds like a plan.
Maybe I'll get my face painted like a butterfly, or
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
I'll do something else. But
Yeah.
yeah,
An evil butterfly. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my God, that's
exactly.
awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to getting to know more of your
Likewise.
work. And I am very much looking forward to reading your book. People,
Yeah.
MrSamShearon.com and Patreon for all the coolness. Please get over there, check some of that out. You're not going to be disappointed. Kiddos, we've reached the end of another episode. Thank you so much for your support and encouragement. These shows are dedicated to our dear friend Jason Lupo. Please remember, the world is better with you in it. Cling to art, cling to music, cling to the things that make your heart glow. Be good to each other. Love, hugs, and belly rubs. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.